So I got a graduate management consulting job after leaving university without a business degree, without any relevant work experience, and really not knowing what consulting was. I studied classics at university, which is like ancient history, and I really didn't have any relevant work experience, yet the company I worked for still hired me. And I do actually get this question quite a lot in my comments or on Instagram, which is, how did you get a consulting job with a degree in classics? So if you're at uni and you're thinking about doing consulting, or you're just applying to any graduate job in general, then this video is for you. And I'm going to help you with your application because I really wished I'd watched more of these videos when I was applying for this kind of stuff at university. First, a little pep talk, which is just that you don't need a business degree or a degree in economics or in maths or in some kind of finance related thing to get a job in consulting or in finance. You just have to convince the people hiring you that you will be nice to work with, that you'll be able to learn how to do the job, and that you have the potential to do the job really well. That should be the main goal of your application, and that is generally what the people on the other end, people hiring you, are thinking about. Recruiters, especially at big corporate companies, do not expect you to be really good at the job before you get there because you've never done it before. It's a graduate job. They just want to see you be engaged, have potential, and that you'd be nice to work with. I think that's really underrated. So it pays to be friendly at the interview and the assessment day and things like that, and we'll talk more about that. But with consulting in particular, you really don't need to have any kind of work experience or to show that you know lots about like finance or business or whatever. You just need to show that you can think logically. That is really what they care about. It's more about demonstrating how you can think about things and the character traits that you have, rather than being like, I know all about economics and this area of finance and whatever. It's more about how you will approach problem solving and things like that. And generally, the people hiring you in most cases are just a few years ahead of you. So they've maybe been at the business for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And so they're not like, experts in their field. They can remember what it's like to be a graduate and to come through the process. They're not trying to intimidate you or scare you. They're just trying to figure it out as much as you are to some extent. They actually haven't maybe done that many interviews or are not that familiar with the process. They are also trying to look good in the interview in the same way that you are. So we're going to get into it now, but quickly, some context about me. I went to UCL, which is a pretty good university in London. So I did have that advantage, if that is an advantage. I mean, it is an advantage over certain other universities, but I did study classics, and that really isn't relevant to consulting. So it can help what university you go to and what degree you have. As long as you have a 2-1 or above, that's usually fine. But other than that, I didn't really have any obvious advantages. I had relatively good grades. I was at a good university, but I didn't have much else going for me. I just think I did a good job of convincing them that I could be good at the consulting job, and also using all the kind of different things that I'd done up to that point, like football coaching, which I'll talk more about, and any work experience that I had done, just convincing them that that work experience somehow translated into consulting. And I think that is quite often what it is about. Okay, so we're going to start with applications. How did I actually go about it? So I finished university, and at university I didn't really apply to that many graduate programs. I applied to a couple, but my heart wasn't in it, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I ended up doing this football coaching course with Arsenal's community centre, which was really fun. That started immediately after I left university in 2019. So in August 2019, I started this football coaching program. And then as I was going through it, I realized, okay, I do actually want to do a graduate program. And it came to around October, November of 2019, and I decided to start applying for some consulting graduate programs because I thought consulting was going to be the thing that would give me the most rounded experience. And my approach was that I was just going to apply for one every single day until I couldn't apply to any more, because I was hearing back from enough of them that I didn't have enough time to continue applying for one a day. And the reason that I went for this approach was just quantity over quality, because a lot of these companies, it isn't a person who is reviewing the cover letters and the CVs. It's quite often a machine or some kind of computer who's analyzing the text and then filtering through it and picking certain people. That was just the way I went about it. Some people think a quality over quantity approach is better. It was just my approach, and I ended up doing 10 applications before I started hearing back from the first companies that I applied for, so I didn't have enough time to continue doing an application every single day. The thing I want to highlight here when you're doing these applications is fit in before you stand out. In the job description, they will be saying what they want from a graduate in this role. And they might say like something like good communication and, good problem solving skills, all that kind of stuff. Use those keywords in your CV and your cover letter. And what I did was I tried to do that. I tried to match up my CV and my cover letter with the job description as much as I could to fit in. I didn't then change my CV for each company that I applied to. I changed the cover letter. I do like an hour or two of research just to look at their main projects, their main sectors that they worked in, and kind of the general vibe. I would rewrite the cover letter with the same template, the same format, just changing like a few sentences, a few words to make it look bespoke to that company. That was all I did. I didn't change the CV very much. And then I would just send it off. So it took me about an hour or two each day to send off an application. And I just thought I'm going to do that until I start hearing back. So in your CV and your cover letter, you really want to show the things that you've done and why you think they should hire you. And you want to use the relevant work experience that you have, if you've got some, and try and pick out the individual skills that you learn doing that job and how they relate to the job that you're applying for. So for example, I was applying for a consulting job and I thought that the football coaching that I was doing was a really good place to learn how to do effective communication with like lots of kids and teenagers and stuff like that, to talk to a group, to think on my feet, and to sort of some kind of presenter personality that I had to develop. And I kind of related each individual session to being like a consulting project. So I would say before the session, I would make a plan and I would spend a lot of time on the plan so that when it came to session, I was really well prepared. And then for the actual session, I would do my best to deliver on the plan and I would adapt within it if things changed, which they often did. And then after doing the football session, then I would reflect on how the session went. And all of that kind of related to consulting projects. You can plan for them, you deliver them, and then you reflect on how they went. And showing that kind of connection just helps whoever is reading, because it will be read by a human at some point, helps them understand that you know what consulting is about, but also just that you could have the potential to be good at consulting as well. So that's kind of how I went about the CV and cover letter. I just sent off as many as I could. I would just try and make the cover letter as actually authentic as possible. Like genuinely, why did I actually want the job, with as little kind of fluff that people wouldn't want to read as possible. One really useful thing to do is try and get connections in the business that you're applying for before you apply for it. This is obviously really difficult if you're applying to lots of companies, but in general, you can message people on LinkedIn, you can try and go to careers fairs at university if you're at university, and you can just try and get in contact with people who work there in the department that you're applying for and try and just get a chat with them, have a coffee with them, just get a couple messages with them. Then they at least know who you are and they are like expecting the application. And yes, if it's seen by a machine first, then it doesn't necessarily help that much. But if people are looking out for you, it just helps, and especially if they like you, then they know your application's coming, and it just can be that sort of 1% difference that helps you get the job. So the next part of the application is getting through to the online test or online video interview section. And the company that I ended up working for, the test that I'd had to do was just a psychometric test, and it was like a sort of series of games, and you just have to like try and do as well as you can in the games. But other companies sometimes have like video interviews where you have to talk about something, and that is like an insanely painful process. But the solution to doing well in both of those things is just preparation, finding out what the tests are like for that company beforehand, trying to find out what things you're likely to be asked to. Just take your time over it, don't do it in a stressful environment, and always making use of the practice tests that they normally give you in this kind of thing. Like they give you a practice video interview or they give you a practice game that you have to do. Always make use of that and take your time. Okay, so moving on to the assessment day itself. There's two parts to the assessment day that a company I worked for. There was a group task and a case study. There are lots of videos on YouTube about how to do well in a group task, and I actually watched a lot of these before I went into the group task. And there are a couple pieces of important advice, which is basically just be nice in the group task. Include everyone, speak up. You obviously can't get anywhere if you don't say anything. You have to be a little bit confident, you have to back yourself, but you just want to be generally good for the group. You don't want to dominate or seem too overbearing. You just want to be as inclusive and as normal and as friendly and as productive and helpful as possible. And then some actual practical tips are to kind of keep watch of the time. That's like a really simple one that lots of people always mention, to make sure that you're actually solving whatever task you're actually trying to do. It's really easy to get sidetracked. So just staying on top of the task that you have been set and making sure that everything everyone's doing is like geared towards that. And thinking out loud is another thing that you can do. So just thinking about how can we solve this problem logically? How can we approach this with the most kind of rational mindset? And then another thing is just asking other people what they think if they haven't said too much, or if they have, just asking them a specific question. That can really help you solve the task well, because actually you'll get the best solution or the best answer to the problem if you include everyone, because more brains are better than one. Then for the case study, I had an interview with two people, and the case study that I had was just like this water company that had these like very generic problems, which were, as far as I can remember, that they basically had too high operational costs and they needed to figure out where they could save money. Obviously, I didn't know anything about water companies at the time, but they just wanted to see how I would approach the problem. And so I drew a little map of what I thought like the water treatment process was, kind of the treatment plant, then going to the water distributor, and then going to people's homes and businesses, and then back to the treatment plant, stuff like that. I just tried to think about it as logically as I could based on what I know. they're really not looking for you to actually know that much about whatever it is you're talking about. They just want to see how you think and that you can think logically and rationally and try and come up with some sensible assumptions. So then the final part of my application was the final interview. So I had a CV and a cover letter, and that was the first stage, then online test, then assessment day, which included the case study and a group task. And then I had a final interview. And this final interview was 1.5 hours with 2 people. I approached this with the mindset of preparation. So they said that the interview would be kind of general, but there would be half an hour on one specific topic, which I'll talk about in a second. So the first hour was just competency interview. So they wanted to get to know me more. I thought they were going to ask me all the generic interview questions. So I went online and I just searched as many of these questions as I could find, and I tried to answer all of them. So what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Why do you think you'd be good at this company? Why do you think you'd be a good consultant? Why do you think you'd not be a good consultant? Why should we hire you? All of that kind of thing. And I just went through all of these different questions and I tried to come up with really good answers to all of them, so that when I went into the interview, I didn't sound rehearsed, but I had examples and things to reference for why I would be good at that company. Another classic one is tell me about a challenge that you faced and how you dealt with it. I answered that one and they actually asked me that in the interview. I had an answer for it. It's all that kind of thing. Just try and draw from all the experiences that you've got in your life. It can be from school, it can be from sports teams, it can be from extra club activities that you have, it can be from university, it can be from hanging out with friends. As long as there's a connection and a lesson that you can draw from that experience into why you think you'd be a good consultant, then it doesn't really matter what it is. And then the half an hour section of the interview, they asked me what they thought the future of AI would be in construction. And they gave me that question in advance of the interview. So I then obviously spent lots of time researching AI and construction and lots of different things like that. And I came up with 5 things that I could talk about. So I barely knew about it. I went to the interview not really knowing that much still, but I had 5 things that I could mention, like the use of drones with construction and the use of modeling construction projects so that you could see a 3D model of the building, basically, all that kind of thing. And I just had 5 things that I knew I could mention and that I could reference if they asked me different types of questions, like, do you think the use of AI is a good thing? Or do you think this would be beneficial for the construction industry? Then I could just be like, oh yeah, well there's this example or there's this thing that, So preparation is the answer to how to do well in an interview. Okay, so that is kind of everything that I have to say. I could obviously go into more detail about certain parts of it and try and share more information, but I didn't want to make the video too long. So if you want to know more, then drop a comment and I can try and make another video on it. I can just answer the comment. But in general, the summary is fit in before you stand out. The first stage, that online bit where your application might be seen by a machine, as many of the keywords that they use in the job description, try and get them into your CV and your cover letter. And it will also be something that the recruiter is looking out for as well, because they will have read the job description. They hopefully would have done. Then after that stage, you just want to be as authentic as possible, actually show who you are, what you like to do, and why you think you'd be good at the job. And draw from your experiences as much as possible. Even if you haven't done any work experience, you don't think you've actually done anything that relates to the job at all, there will be something. There will be a project that you did in school. There will be a sort of something you did in the holidays once. There will be something that you can draw on, that you can talk about in an interview or in your cover letter. There is always something. And just explain why you genuinely want the job. If you just want the job because you don't know what else to do, you can come up with a reason why you think you'd like it, because there will be things that you do like about it. I just think it's a good policy to always be truthful, honest, authentic, and it will just show in your application. And when it does make it to humans, then they will appreciate it and feel like there's an actual person on the other side of this application. And then obviously for interviews, as we said, preparation is the key. I hope that was useful. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to learn more about consulting, you can watch this video I made here about a beginner's guide to consulting, where I kind of go through more about my consulting experience. And you can also watch this video here called A Day in the Life of a Consultant, where I don't really talk about consulting at all, but you can kind of see what my office was like and all that vibe and stuff. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.